You're listening to Data Center Therapy. Please take a number, and an engineer will be right with you.
Welcome back, everyone, to Data Center Therapy, a podcast from Ivoxy Consulting that talks all things IT with a healthy dose of empathy. I'm your host, Matt Yette, and I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Cozzolino.
Hello, everyone.
How are you today, Matty?
I'm doing pretty good. It's Monday.
It's cool. That's cool. It is Monday. You're not... If you were listening to this on Monday, God bless you for that purpose, but maybe not. These last couple weeks for me have been insane. I mean, I know a lot of us in the world of Ivoxy and our calendars, we can usually say a good rule of thumb is I'm available 2 weeks from now. Mm-hmm. In general, you get that 2 week kind of availability buffer. Things fill up. And then sometimes you see like next week's coming and it's wide open, and then Monday hits and things like that.
Fills right up, yeah.
This I am talking, and usually that's more for post-sale stuff. For pre-sales meetings, usually it's a little easier to get on the phone at short notice. But even with that, I'm jamming out like 2 weeks, 3 weeks right now.
Really?
And
I want to say I've got like a month.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
It's crazy. Yeah. A lot of times pre-sales meetings don't go on quite that far ahead.
Here's 30 minutes and you only need 15.
Right.
Okay.
And I don't need to book it out a month ahead of time, right? So, but I tell you, it's insane, and I complain about it and I bring it up, but I was going to say something.
Good problem to have, right? Though
it is a good problem to have. Yeah. You're right. But what I was going to say was back in the days of all of our meetings in person, or most of them, not all of them, never all of them. Windshield time was a thing.
You can get back in the car. Yeah.
Get back in the car. You sit in traffic, whatever, and maybe you'll take a call. But I've always told my account managers, listen, I'll jump on a call in the car. Yeah. I'll jump on the car. I'll jump on the call, but it's 15% Matt Yette. I can't. Yeah. And I never refer to myself in the third person. That was weird, but but I can't take notes. I can't refer to notes.
Right.
So you
got to drive, so you can't put all of the brain energy into it.
And AMs, they typically, they'll typically take notes on the call, but they take it from their context, right? They don't take it from necessarily the technical context, and it's fine. It's just it's an expectation that I want to put out there. Yeah. So we're gonna dive right into it. We wanna kick this off and get going, diving in. But stay tuned. It's going to probably be one of our more bite-sized episodes. Hopefully, we got some more to record today, there are some announcements coming that I want to tease about. Maybe getting virtually up close and personal with Mr. Cozzolino himself.
Dun, dun, dun.
So stay tuned after the meat of this thing to get to the real meat, right?
Let's do it.
We are talking about micro-segmentation today, right? And that's kind of a topic that people think about: network virtualization, this and that, NSXT. Microseg is usually the driver that brings all of that up. Is that right?
That's the one that I see the most, is like what's driving this? Why are we having this conversation? It's almost kind of just a buzzword to some extent, and we need to do this, but we don't really understand what that means. Is kind of the piece. So
yeah. It seems to be where a lot of times you look at virtualized networking and you're like, well, I've already got a router, I've already got a switch, and I've already got a firewall, and then. But microseg is, okay, great. Do you have a firewall in between every single virtual endpoint on the network? And, well, outside of saying I have a Windows firewall or something like that.
There's a bit of a difference there. A lot of people, when we talk about microsegmentation, when we talk about NSX, it's like, I don't want to virtualize my everything. And it's not, it doesn't have to be that. And I think that's one of the things that is not quite understood. So that's a concept to cover with microsegmentation in general,
Challenge being, too, you could be having a meeting with the systems guys, and we're talking about microsegmentation. Right. You could be having a meeting just with the network guys, and you still have to bring the system guys in. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a tougher scale to understand, because you've got some paradigm changes. Mm-hmm. So I know that a lot of this is built around a concept of zero trust, and outside of the fact of how I feel about you, what else does zero trust really mean in this context?
In the context of technology, zero trust is kind of broad, and it encompasses a bunch of different components. So effectively, I as a sysadmin don't trust any device, period. Just flat, right? So you could equate that to kind of like the default deny rule on the firewall, right? So unless I specifically allow this, nothing's getting in. So that kind of zero trust concept covers a lot more than just the data center.
Well, and I like that too, because gone are the days of I don't know. I never liked the BYOD movement when I was in ops, because I'm like, no, I don't want to support your Swiss cheese Android phone on my network, and this Verge deploying iPhone or whatever. But even if you don't allow BYOD, how do you control the behavior of your users? Because if they're determined to click an attachment or whatever,
right,
it's going to happen. So you almost have to treat even your own systems, no matter how many layers of security, you almost still have to look at them with a skeptical eye, and like you said, trust is zero.
Right. So that's kind of, I think, the big shift that you talk about. Back in the day, you'd have your environment. This is my safe space of networking, or my safe environment, right? And I've got a firewall at the edge, and I've got my data center lives over here, and then I come in and log into my computer, and it's inside of my network, and it's here, and it's trusted because it's inside the gates, the fortress that I've built.
And that was probably a much smaller environment at that time too. Not VM sprawl might not have been a huge concern, so you felt like you had your arms around it at least a little bit.
Right. So you write your firewall rules, you stick some stuff in the DMZ, you do some inbound traffic, you're good, you're safe. The thing that doesn't happen, or the thing that you can't address from that point unless you route everything through the firewall, and even then you can't, is if one machine gets infected, now what's to stop that lateral transition? I've got one machine infected. Now how do I stop that from going east-west?
Same layer 2 domain. That's just the very nature of broadcast traffic means
exactly.
Layer 2 means I can go, it's my street, I can go anywhere on it.
Right.
Without going through a stoplight.
And we can do some stuff like do a layer 2 bridge with a couple of different VLANs and stick a firewall between them. I've got that. We've got a couple of customers that are doing that, but it still doesn't address anything. You've still got that inside, air quotes, safe network that is still layer 2 adjacent, because it's still a VLAN and still east-west available. So
and it's part of a layer of approach, a layered security approach, right? And would you say this is more of a towards the first line or towards the last line, if you had to rank how you layer
lines?
Right. Lines of defense.
Lines of defense. I'd put that a little closer to the bottom.
That's where I'm thinking too.
Yeah, a little closer to the bottom. So like, if we want to talk about all of the different layers, we're looking at something like, I need to trust the endpoint that's connecting, right? So either I completely don't trust them at all, right? So users hitting Google, logging into your Gmail account or your Office account, right? It's all through a web interface. I don't have to trust the endpoint itself because it's all presented. It's all a web page I'm presenting. Or I have to do stuff like intrusion protection, HIPS checks of a device that's connecting to my environment. So my VPN client is doing a check of the antivirus level on the endpoint and the what patch levels do they have, all of that stuff about the endpoint before I let them connect. And then you start getting into the inside environment. And like you mentioned, the like Windows Firewall on a machine. Effectively, we're talking about doing that and controlling policy at the individual machine level, right?
Sure, but kind of detached from the OS, so you're able to, if the OS is compromised completely and somehow the firewalls or whatever, that's still outside the reach of that Windows administrative action.
Right. So from a paper point of view, like draw this out, I can accomplish these things, yes, with group policies using the Windows Firewall across your environment, right? And there's a firewall. I can deny traffic between these two VMs, even though they're layer 2 adjacent. But you're absolutely right. That Windows Firewall happens to live inside of the OS. So if the OS is compromised, then I can potentially interact, adjust, change that Windows Firewall.
I do like the ability when it comes to APIs and access for third party is have firewall actions triggered based on things that happen elsewhere. Let's say you've got one of those layers that is endpoint protection running on one of the VMs and it detects something. maybe it mitigates and it does something to that VLAN. Or I always picture microseg as a no-brainer use case for something like your virtual desktop environment, where
Yeah.
where your desktops are disposable, more or less, and what's the big deal? If something gets compromised, you shut it down, you lock it out, quarantine it, spin up another
orbit, and move on.
Yeah. Right. But not nuke, though, because a lot of times you want the forensic ability to go in and post-mortem sometimes, right?
Sure.
But that's isolated.
Yeah, isolate it, move it off to the side, spin up a new set of desktops, right? That kind of gets into the management component of it, right? So I'd spend a lot more time writing individual firewall rules for applications and the servers that run them inside of the data center than I would for a desktop. I'd say, here's your desktop pool, and you can log in. The pool is the smallest unit of management that I care about versus this application.
Well, it's way more disposable too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Versus this application is made up of these 5-6 VMs, so I get some individual rules for all of those devices inside of that application, right?
So are we basically to the point now where even your internal LAN is a no trust zone, is untrusted? It's maybe not public /DMZ, to go in the old firewall adage, right? Yeah. The language, but it's kind of internal-esque or not really?
Kind of. I mean, you take that zero trust concept and to me, you get the most stress. You create the most stress when you try to hybrid. I've got some things that I trust, some things that I don't. You do have to do some sort of that, but if you just say, okay, nothing, period, across the board, nothing, unless I allow it, then you've bought into that and you've done that, and now your management becomes a little easier because you're doing the same thing all the time anyway. The same kind of reason, like when we're talking about scripting, Terraform, Ansible, that kind of stuff, if you just do it, then it's already there, it's already built. You don't have to, go back and try to troubleshoot anything or whatever.
Yeah, and you have to balance that against a workforce that has a certain level of tolerance to the effort they need to make to go through multi-factor authentication, things like that. It's a high wire to balance, and I don't envy anybody who has to do it, right?
Right. So there's
saying these are best practices is almost that's the easy part,
right?
Is being able to say that, and I don't have to necessarily own that. I mean, in a way we do, but
that's the one, like the customers that we've helped deploy micro-segmentation, that's actually one of the questions that comes up is, I'm a sysadmin, I manage the VMware, the storage, the core infrastructure. Now you want me to write security policy? No, I need to hand that off to the security team that actually manages that. I can keep this running and support it, but someone else needs
or how to spin up a little mini security team yourself, given lack of resources. That's what I like about us where we are too, because we can be truly objective. And a lot of times it's not like we come on high and say, this is how you guys need to do it. But a lot of times our customers look to us to say, look, we feel this way, we feel that way. The brass won't buy in or can't buy in or just won't see it from us because it's too subjective of a point of view when they hear it from us. So we need an objective observer to come in and evaluate and see what the best practices are. And that's been the case an awful lot, where we come in and just say, look, clean slate, we don't care about internal politics, nothing, there is no pre-existing, this is how it should be.
Right, yeah.
And it gives them a reason to kind of move in that direction, which is good. But it also is a lot of pain for that customer too at the beginning. But microseg, I mean, NSX, we've gone through V and now we're full bore into T, and it's becoming, you're seeing some maturity, you're seeing it, exist in the cloud.
It's grown quite a bit. That absolutely, you mentioned, is one of the big things is leveraging NSX. So to be clear, you don't have to supplant, you don't have to replace any of the physical networking components, right?
No, in fact, you still require at least some level of
absolutely,
that.
Yeah. At some point, I need to interact with the physical world, right? I can virtualize all this stuff, but I do need to interact with it. The positive thing about like leveraging NSX to do that policy, one is, we talked about, it's decoupled from the operating system itself, and two, because of the way NSX works, I have the ability to apply this policy on-prem and to my machines that are running in Azure, in AWS, right? So I can write my policy once and then apply it to that set of applications no matter where it lives.
In my opinion, that's one of the bigger ones.
Mm-hmm.
It's as you become hybrid, you truly have more than one environment, right?
Right.
And yeah, being able to wrangle that and keep control, herd
Mhm.
those cats. And that's one of those things. If they get out of sync or you have to juggle, two balls in the air instead of just the one, you're going to make mistakes.
Absolutely. The
That
more touch
DFW,
points, right? Yeah.
DFW, distributed firewall, is the answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to NSXT and network virtualization, we're in agreement that microsegmentation is the number one reason that people look to go in that direction. Would you say?
That is the one that I hear the most out of. Is I have this mandate to deploy microsegmentation. Security is important, et cetera, et cetera. That's the one that everyone's talking about. That's the hot buzzword. That's the thing. So
from my point of view, it's almost the layer of the layering of the routing on top of disparate networks.
Mhm.
When you talk about hybrid cloud and you want your subnets to live there, but we have a DR, I want them to live there, et cetera, or something like that. Is that sounds to me like that would be why I would look at it also if I was to go out to the cloud.
So me being the nerd I am, I think that component, that virtualized layer 2 subnet concept and the ability to do that is way cooler than distributed firewalls.
I agree with you because look at how many years have you and I worked together where we've done our DR workshops in identifying the systems and what their retention requirements are and the recovery time objectives
RTO,
and
RPO,
how they all match up and what systems you need.
How do I group
how much
these?
is that like okay, that's good, that's great. Now, how do I actually bring them up over there? And how many steps from running in this run book are dedicated to the networking piece of that? And when you have that virtual layer 2 network that you just say it lives over there, put the layer 3 on, and away we go, and recalculate my route tables. But that's the thing is, as easy as that sounds, that's still the hardest part of any of this cloud. I can spin up a VM in the cloud, great. How do you get to it?
Right.
How does
it's always getting the user to that device, right?
Yep.
We can
To
simplify
make the network
a bunch of stuff.
To make the network as ethereal and portable as possible, also, and flexible. And don't say DNS. I don't like.
It's always DNS.
It was DNS.
It was DNS. It was.
So you put down something here where basically the idea of the everywhere is Starbucks. Now, outside of the dystopic hell that sounds like to me, no offense to anybody who loves Starbucks, but what do you mean by that?
That's kind of that concept of zero trust, right? So from a management point of view, if I have two different environments, and you've done this, I know, and I still do, other users, I'm sure, you've got a DNS record for this service that resolves to something different internally than it does externally.
Split right? DNS all the time.
Split DNS. So that kind of goes back to that. This is my environment. It's the inside environment. You're in the physical office. I have to treat users inside of the office differently than I treat users outside of the office, right? If you're working from home, to be able to get to X, you have to log into the VPN first. You have to do this. If you come into the office, you don't because X, Y, and Z. That kind of split user experience is, to me, it adds to management overhead because now I have to treat them as two different things, and I have to make sure it works this way and it works that way. So if we kind of take a step back and I say, you know what, here's my data center. It lives over here. It is secure. I do my microsegmentation of my applications that are run inside of that data center, and it is this box that sits somewhere completely different. And all of my users, it doesn't matter if they're in the office, it doesn't matter if they're in Starbucks, it doesn't matter if they're in their house, they have the exact same user experience. That kind of simplifies everything, right? Now I only have one way to present the application. I present it. It's presented as if it's on the public internet, regardless of where it is, right? That's kind of my thinking, my concept of that.
So let's say you've got the policy, and how do you define, you know, that implementation? How do you say, okay, I want to deploy micro-segmentation. I want to get that firewall distributed throughout my environment, but my goodness, the false positives, or all of a sudden this application has been at this company for, pardon me, a decade. I don't know really much about, and oops, all of a sudden it stopped working after I flipped this switch, and I thought that I allowed everything. So, is there ways to get there easily, or more easily?
Easy. Is there an easy button for that kind of stuff? Yeah, I wish.
Yeah, you call Cozzolino.
Right. Yeah, sure. I can handle that. Where do you need that hole dug? There isn't an easy button. There are tools that you can use to help understand the flows of applications. So like specifically we're talking about NSX Intelligence and Network Insight, which take flow data, so it's the same kind of N-flow, S-flow traffic that your network team is looking at. We're taking that flow data and then visualizing it and grouping these VMs that the systems know about, and it builds the cool little connections that say, hey, this system is talking to that system on these ports, and then it's got some TCP traffic, it's got some SSH traffic, it's got some HTTP traffic. It kind of helps you visualize that, which you then can use to write your policy.
Does it integrate to the point of actually suggesting rule creation, or does it give you a report that you go through and then build the rules from it?
So Network Insight is more report driven, and it's going to show you that from a report type point of view.
Which is good for your own understanding anyway. I think it's something that everybody should have a good handle
on. Intelligence is the one that's working on, let me make those recommendations for you, right? I haven't quite spent enough time with that to say yes, no, that's the way to do it. My concern is with pretty much anything that's generated and recommended like that, that it doesn't create the like understandable, addressable, readable flow data, rule set data. Whereas if you take the approach of doing stuff like, here's my 3 VMs that make up the application, I'm going to write some tags on, I'm going to tag those VMs, and then I'm going to write some rule based on the tags. That kind of keeps you in a more readable, human-based format. Otherwise, there's kind of that, do I just step back, throw my hands up, and let the computer do it all, or not, right?
Yeah,
if I need to be able to interact with it, there's
that first scenario is terrifying to me. I always say it, Siri still can't understand what I'm saying, so I'm going to trust my network firewall as to what it thinks. Yeah.
So
the 95% concept, that like Dragon Naturally Speaking from 1995, it's always going to be almost 100%, but not quite. Not when you need it. Not when you need it.
Never is.
Well, that's cool. Let's talk about what we've got going on, because related to this, we've got a lot going on here. The first is a virtual workshop. Now, first, before I dive into it, what exactly is a virtual workshop?
Well, that's a very good question.
I hit you with one there.
I'm still figuring that out.
Okay, what are you going to talk about? Forget what it's meant to be. What's it going to be?
So the virtual workshop component is a little bit of what we're talking about here, a little more hands-on, a little more demo. So we're going to cover kind of the same kind of topic. What is microsegmentation? How are we going to look at it? How do we help you, secure your environment by doing this? We're going to talk about some of the different ideas. So the same kind of stuff we talked about a little bit today. But then we're going to get into a demo of what it actually looks like, how it actually works. Here's some of the components that we'll use. Here's some of the things we'll touch, and actually take a look at what you're going to see when you sign up for the class, right?
Cool. I like that. And it's just it's a little 2-hour window. So that's what the first announcement is. That workshop date is Thursday, April 16th. So it's a little over, probably by the time you're listening to this, a couple of weeks away, from 1 to 3 in the afternoon Pacific time. You can register online, and we'll put this link in the podcast notes and description because, it's ivoxy.com. /what and how of microsegmentation with little dashes in between each word. So forget about the URL on the audio.
There's going to be a link in the
the link will be in the notes. We didn't do the old short URL for that one. But yeah, again, April 16th from 1 to 3 in the afternoon Pacific time. The what and the how of microsegmentation. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. It sounds like a Pink Floyd album.
That's a good one. We should do that. I got some 80s trivia type stuff. Not trivia, but 80s.
You want to test me?
No. I got Easter eggs that I'm dropping into the class. Fun little things that I'm.
So you're kind of making it your own little Ready Player One kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I don't know if we've ever talked about that. I know the book readers who are on the book before the movie, like anything, are big movie haters for the most part. They blew it. Spielberg sucks.
You can't add into a movie.
So it's weird. So I was, oh God, I'm dating myself. I turned 40 this year. I will turn 40. I have not yet. But point being, I was born in 81. I was an 80s kid. So I saw the movie first and loved it. And spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, maybe turn it off. And I'm going to talk about a couple things. The Shining scene was one of my favorite movie moments. I mean, in the theater, I took Ready Player One to be as what it must have been like to be a 5-year-old watching E.T.
Right.
It just was. I've seen CGI. I'm the one who was like, why did we wait this so long for Avatar? Big deal. It's Toy Story with blue people. Like,
right.
Wasn't impressed. This, Ready Player One, impressed me. I went back to the theater again. It was just, wow.
It was a good one.
And that Shining scene. So then I went and got the book. And I liked the book. But in terms of like the references in the book, not linked to me at all. Where the movie was hitting that nostalgia for me, the book references just weren't the things I was super into. So I actually liked the movie.
Yeah, I did too. I think it was a little more consumable. The first book and the second book, there was, I think to your point, a lot that I don't necessarily understand that reference, right? To do that. Right. To do that Captain America.
Well,
I did.
In fair, I thought the second book was atrocious.
It was a bit of a, grab for a little more. There could have been a little more structure to that,
But the Easter egg stuff's great, and it's fun to rewatch the movie and see all the things that are references that aren't really, called out, but you notice. Freddy Krueger on Planet Doom, things like that.
Yeah, here's this thing sitting over there in the background that we don't have to talk about because it just exists, right?
Right. Yeah. The Goro for Mortal Kombat, and then you got the T-Rex during the race. Yeah, just awesome stuff. So yes, I'm looking for. I'm gonna have to jump in and see if I can count how many references there will be. The little Easter eggs you'll drop.
Yeah,
I'll be the gunter.
I guess I gotta toss. There you go. I guess I gotta toss some more in there.
Yeah. And so that workshop on April 16th is all leading up to the open enrollment class. So Cozzo's class, he's teaching it. It's his first one. Introduction to microsegmentation using NSXT. Do you have a wingman, a side saddle guy helping you on this one?
Yes, Neil is going to be my my lab assistant, my instructor assistant, my TA. Neil's going to be my TA. There we go.
Your pretty TA, Neil Cassell. There you go. Yes, that's cool. So those class dates, it's towards the end of May, so it's May 25th to the 28th. That's a 4-day class, Matt?
I think we've got it scheduled for 3. We'll see what the content looks like.
Yep. So those are all-day classes. So you want to enroll on our site. That's open now, apparently. So enrollment for that class, because that's going to fill up quickly, especially when that virtual workshop rolls around. So you'll want to get it, again, link in the podcast, but it's ivoxy.com/microsegmentation using NSXT is the link. But you'll want to get to that from the notes again. And so as a special thank you to y'all for listening, and I've talked to a few customers recently. Hello, you know who you are. Thank you for listening, by the way. Lisa, John, and etc. Jamie. As a special thank you, if you enter the promo code PODCASTPODS. Who came up with this one? Oh, poor May. I'm going to be picking on her. Podcast Pods. So podcast is singular. Pods is plural. One word. Podcast Pods. When you enroll, we'll shave $1,000 off the enrollment and gift you a pair of Apple AirPod Pros. Whoa.
Look at that.
Okay, so I'm going to have to bring out my alter ego there, Cat Spletty, and register for this class and get a pair of AirPod Pros. That's pretty nice. And that promo code, when registering, when enrolling for the class, you save $1,000 and get a pair of AirPod Pros. So the promo codes, here's the rub. They're limited to the first 10 folks who enroll. So get that manager approval and get ready for class. Yes, class is almost in session with Mr. Cozzolino. Awesome. That's cool. I didn't even know. That was the first time I read that, by the way. So that surprise was genuine.
I didn't know we were going to do that. That's cool.
That was cool. All right. Well, I think that does it for this episode of Data Center Therapy. Mr. Coz, thanks for joining and talking about all that nerdy stuff.
My pleasure, as always.
And if you have not yet subscribed to us, definitely smash that subscribe button. Give us a 5-star review. We would love you for it.
There's a ring the bell thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to have to put that on the soundboard. I like it. Thanks again for listening to Data Center Therapy, everyone. Have a great day.